This is Terry Cole. Welcome to my presentation called Stand the Test of Time from NPSP 2 to Agents in the Cloud. I have been running Street Youth Ministry with Salesforce for 14 years, and I think it's a tumultuous time for every Salesforce admin, and I wanted to do this presentation particularly to show how all parts of your Salesforce organization can work together and to show which parts of the work that I've done has stood the test of time. Parts of it have absolutely not. I won't be mentioning those in this presentation. Everything that I talk about here builds upon one another and has stood the test of time. And so here we go. I need to make myself smaller and a little bit out of the way. Everything started with NPSP, started on 2.0. It allowed me to bring in donations and volunteers and newsletter subscribers. I used NPSP 2 to track donors. I use Volunteers for Salesforce to track volunteers. And I used campaigns to track every communication we do from the very beginning. I've plugged in different tools underneath that campaign to send printed mail just via manual means, or to send out automated emails through at least 4 different mail tools, and now even just regular core Salesforce does a pretty good job of sending quite a few emails. So that has always been what I did, and I was conscious of keeping my data model simple and not wasting space on duplicate stuff. So anyway, I'm not going to spend much more time on that. Obviously, I transitioned to NPSP 3, and there I sit because it's adequate and I have plenty of other work to do. The next thing I had to do was making Salesforce work with anonymous data, because we serve clients that we often only know the name of, and we can look at them and guess age and ethnicity and gender, but that's all we know. And so the solution was to create some fake fields for the first name and the last name to make Salesforce happy, and have custom fields for the street name and, when we knew it, the legal first name and last name. And then we needed to differentiate things. As an example, we have lots of Davids, but we as a team always were doing things like, Skater David, or, Punk David, or Bicycle David. He always, the guy always on that bike. And so what we did is we called that his positive passion, and that became a custom field. And that's a lot to remember if you're a Salesforce user just trying to record, hey, we served Dave on the bicycle today. But what we did was create a flow that managed all of that for the user. And that was really our first flow. And it's called our Upsert flow. And what it does is, whether you're working with Dave, the skater that you've got to find, you've already served him before, or David, the punk that is brand new, and Dave, the punk that has told you his legal name for the first time, you need to edit him, or David on a bicycle that you believe we've met for the first time. Whether you're doing any of that, it's the same flow. And we call that an Upsert flow. And so here's the flow. It first receives some parameters from its parent flow, calling flow. And if we're just creating a new one and we know it, it just goes down that path. If we don't say anything, it asks first, meaning it asks you to give it a search name. So maybe you type in David, or maybe you type in bicycle or bike, or maybe punk, because there's a bunch of punk people, but not so many of them are named David, and you'll be able to see it really fast. And so it shows you those possible choices. You pick one, and now the contact you're working with. If you already knew for some reason what you want to search for, you can pass in the search parameters, and it just jumps right down to looking for those and showing you the options. Or if you know for a fact this person's new, you can, and this person already exists and you already have their ID, you can just look up the contact. And so all 4 branches here do the same thing: identify a contact and go out. And where they go out to is the main input screen, where we show everything we're interested in about a client. And this has evolved over time. And for a long time, we only served people in Austin, Texas, so we didn't need to worry about city state. But then the pandemic happened and we were serving people all over the country, so we had to add city and state. And so we just changed it right here. And every time we created a client or edited a client with new information, we were required to add the city and state. And so the database cleaned itself up over time. And these red notes are all things that turn off as soon as the data is compliant with what's required. And so whether you're editing or adding, you get the same screen, and there's only one of these screens in the whole of our Salesforce system. And then you update that record, and then some other things that are related to contacts can happen, like adding relationships or adding special notes. We have a little other field, so we can add a special note, like they came in with a medical emergency or something like that, so that just gets captured right away from the field. So that's what our Upsert flow looks like, and it's served us really, really well over the years. It's probably, this particular flow is our most run flow in our entire database, hundreds of thousands of times, and we love it. We ended up creating an Upsert flow for almost all the workhorse objects that we use that flow needs to create, so that we didn't have to repeat ourselves when it came to finding a record, avoiding duplicates, making sure the record is clean and has all the required fields that we want to have there, including guidance for getting it there. And so that's our first sort of thing that we did to make client records possible. We anonymized and created one flow that knew how to do all that, contained the business logic, if you will. So the next thing we did is we took our CRM to the streets. 2015, Salesforce Mobile exists. We are in the field. We would like to, it actually first came up running into a donor in the grocery store, and they say, hey, oh, I hope you got that check. And needing to get out my notebook and write down, like, check on Beverly's check when I get back to the office. And it's so much easier just to use the search function of Salesforce, Beverly, and look to see the last donation date and just tell them right there, yeah, we got that. Or somebody says, hey, I'm not getting your emails, but I changed email addresses. Can you update me? Just do it right then and there in the field. And so that's what we did, but it did require a lot of finagling. Today, it's much easier. This is what our contact looks like in the field. We have a fancy formula field that pulls together, maybe this will become AI eventually, but we pull together a structured formula field for a imaginary contact that's a client here. This is the format we present for a client. They're Brandon. We met them in San Marcos. We don't know their positive passion. They're 23 years old. We think they're Hispanic, white, male. We last served them 12 months ago. They've attended 28 of our events. We first served them in 2024 sometime. Probably that's all the information we need to jog our memory about that contact. If you're a donor, it lists how many times you've given, what your last date of gift was, what you give on average a year, those types of things. If you're a newsletter subscriber, what newsletters are you subscribed to, and so on. And so that's what we do. And then we have a flow exposed that knows this is a contact because they have a positive passion of a client. So I'm going to offer choices that you might do on the contact page, like edit their information for that, which is just going to call that Upsert flow, right? And check on certain things that we have, but they can't have every day. They can only have ever so often. Maybe check on their loyalty points bonus. They increase their loyalty points by learning. We'll talk about that in a minute. Or maybe capture a need or request or a goal that they've set. So you can find them in the field, and you never have to leave the page to capture most of our important records about that contact. And that's been our goal, and we try to do that on all the records we might want to look up in the field. Okay, the next thing that we did took years to evolve, but it started out with very simply. People wrote little notes in our donation, and we knew that donor quotes mattered. and we needed to just capture those donor quotes. Or they told me some really cool story of how the newsletter impacted them, at the grocery store, and I really needed to write that down. So what we did was we built a little flow that just captures a working title, what kind of story it is, when it was, who the source was, and kind of the body of it. And it's not meant for publication, but it was meant to notify our newsletter person, like, hey, we have a new quote, and here it is. And so when there's a new one of these, we just send an email alert that says, hey, we got this. And that's where it started. And it stayed there for a long time, and we collected a lot of quotes and we used them, and that's awesome. It became our story bank application. But more than that, it became our content manager, because we realized we were dressing up the quote with some context often or whatever, and we were willing to say, hey, we've published and used that one, so we put in a publication date and a publication status and a number of things. And again, we realized this was kind of an article manager, a content management for internal use. And then we added pictures, and then we added Community Cloud or Experience Cloud. And all of a sudden we realized we could be publishing these things on a microblog very easily, straight from this object. And so that's what we do. These are all managed content stories, and you can click on them, and they have pictures and they have text, and each one has a call to action button that we set the link destination for in the article. And you can try it for yourself. It's at connect.simon.org. We use this model constantly to push out dynamic live content to our website from Salesforce. And, we can expire items automatically. Things that aren't ready to be published don't show up yet. It's all very straightforward, and it's been stable for years, which is amazing given the pace of innovation at Salesforce in content management and creation and all these things, attachments, files. Nothing's really been stable, but this has been rock solid stable for us for many years. But it did take 5 years to get to this point. All right, so that's the next thing we did for ourselves. The next thing we did was an operations scheduling data structure and set of flows. Perhaps I could have and should have used a standard event object, but we wanted to relate it to a bunch of things. We wanted to add a bunch of we wanted to add a bunch of custom fields to it, and we wanted to do automation with it. And it seemed like we were always butting heads against the standard event object. So we just built our own. And I'm not sorry, but perhaps it was unnecessary. But what we do is we have an event in our operations, and that might be a client event, it might be a donor event, it might be a volunteer event, it might be a speaking event, it might be just operating the Helpline center for 4 hours and a shift. Whatever it is, it's an event, and we've scheduled them. And there have been times in our history where we schedule everybody exactly. We're small enough now that we just record who worked the event rather than schedule it, except for those few items that are really important. We are able to hang the staff off of this that was present. We're able to attach the volunteer records to this so that the person running the event knows, hey, I need to check in those 2 volunteers or mark them as no-show. We have logistic things that have to be taken care of. So if we ran out of such and such a thing during the event, or the room wasn't ready, we can add an activity and a task to, and assign it to somebody to take care of it so it doesn't keep happening that way. And we can record attendance of clients, of participants, of trainees, whatever the attendance represents. And so this became our program delivery object. In PMM, this might be the scheduled program delivery record, but in our world, it's a SIM event, and it works really well. It's a heck of a record page, though. Our team logs in every day and can go to today's events, and there's a list of them. There are 24 events in our normal day, apparently, and that includes plenty of generic things as well as specific things that are like client oriented, and there are also monthly tasks and quarterly tasks or events that we that we take care of in this. So it's not a task, it's a set of things to record when it came to program delivery. But anyway, you click into one of these, and this is what you see. This is our record layout. You see something similar on mobile. You just have to click into the various parts of the page. What you really see is a menu of the parts here, and you click into it, and then you've got the same function on mobile. And these are the attached records. You can see lots of things, something called a roster, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Client attendance, that's our program service delivery for a client. Assignment new transactions, that's a special thing where they're earning loyalty points or spending loyalty points. Volunteer signups, that's volunteers for Salesforce things for serving at this event. Client notes, that's things that clients want to do or have done. It's also a special place for incident reports and the like. Service deliveries, special items that we track like backpacks or sleeping bags. Prayer requests, we're faith-based, so we have prayer requests associated with every event, celebrating different people or praying for change and different things, or celebrating how well it went, or praying, it will go smoother next time. Whatever the prayer request is, we attach them here. And there's a flow here that guides our team through it. And that flow, once they've entered who's the person in charge, who is the record keeper of that event, as well as the manager in charge during that event time, then they're presented with this menu where they can add an attendee or copy several attendees from a previous event, make notes. And then there's this roster thing. Roster is a specialized intermediate record. We learned this a long time ago, that in the field, you don't always have time. I'm going to use a publicity event, tabling event. You have people there, you have a piece of paper or maybe a tablet, and people are entering in very basic information: first name, last name, email, phone number, whether they want something, and maybe you make some note because they had a special conversation about wanting to do something. And that's what you know at the end of it. And it might be a volunteer who doesn't even have Salesforce access that did that. They literally are coming to you with this piece of paper, carefully written, hopefully, but this piece of paper, and say, this is the record of the event. And it is necessary then to transcribe that into what we call roster records. That's one record per line, and that's got just whatever was written down: first name, last name, email. It's structured, but not much. It takes very little time and zero decision making, really, other than trying to read the writing typically. And you do that, and you've created the records, and that can be a really fast flow. It's not shown on here, but there's a button to add roster item, and it just loops on one screen. Add that, add that, add that, add that, add that, really fast. You can do 120 minutes easily. And that's one sitting, one job, well understood. Interns can do it, volunteers can do it, team members can do it. It's awesome. But then there's this magic button called Process Roster. Now, at some point, people who know participants have to do that processing, because you know who it was, and you know that James sometimes goes by Jim, and so you need help. Intelligence is required to help guide the system to find the right contact, or decide that we do not have one and add it. And admittedly, AI maybe can do this, but we're not ready for it yet, at least. So this processing, but a processing takes under a minute each one, and you just loop. And if for some reason information is incomplete or unclear, you can skip it and it remains unprocessed. So you might have 800 roster items on this SIM event, and 98 of them are processed, but you still can't mark the SIM event as completed. You have to do the research to figure it out, and maybe it's someone else. So maybe you assign an activity that says, I can't figure out the last two roster items. Will you please decide what to do with them and take care of it, and mark the item as completed? And maybe they assign that to me, or to a coworker who was there. And so that's how we do this processing. And we end up with these full events that are completed, and we know everything's done. We know that we've captured the roster. We've tied it to people's activities. We've tied it to service delivery, whether it's individually or in bulk. Maybe for a speaking event, we just record, hey, we delivered 100 hours maybe it was an hour-long presentation. We delivered 100 hours of community awareness training with this event, and maybe that's the only service record made other than the attendees, because not everybody will have signed in probably. But we know, 100 people signed up, but there were 175 people in the room, so we can actually correctly record the service delivery independent of the attendees. So that's how sim event works and program capture works. And you can do this again, we built sim event and leveraged volunteers for Salesforce for this. If I were starting from scratch, I would use only program memory management module and customize it with the same kind of flows and capabilities and page layout. All right, next thing we did, so we're up to 2021 now, we added self-service. This was during the pandemic. We had a serious problem to empower our clients to, without logging in, without needing passwords, log in from libraries or home laptops or whatever, and engage with us in something we called Simon U. It was a learning process. They learned soft skills. At the time, it was about staying safe and public health and mental health. Today, it's mostly about soft skills for employment and even some hard skills for employment. But we were commissioned to deliver that and engage with our clients and keep everybody moving forward. And they got incentives that they could pick up once they came to see us. And we needed to run all that we needed to run all that. It was quite a challenge. We were always adding courses and always adding prizes and always distributing some of the prizes. So we were running out of prizes. So we really needed to make all that work. So what we did was we created an object that has an attached picture. It eventually was run by Sharon Pix. You can click into it. It gives you the link to take the course and do the quiz. The quiz is notified to us. The team updates a service delivery record and a Simon U transaction on a daily sim event record, and they get the points, and away they go. And then they might redeem those points on various things. And they can browse the library of what they want and even tell us by email or phone number or text what they want. And there's even a place where they can check their own balance. To do this, they have to have a phone number or a text number on record with us, and they enter in that same email or text. It doesn't confirm whether it's true or not to avoid privacy issues, and it sends a message of the account balance, loyalty point balance, to that email or to that phone number if it exists. If none exists, it just creates a case for our team to follow up when we can in person. So this worked really well, and all of it is built with an object and Sharon Pix and Experience Cloud. We bought licenses, but it turned out none of our clients wanted to do password protected stuff. So it turned out we didn't need the licenses and gave them back after the end of the first year. And so it's Experience Cloud with public visibility. So obviously we can't expose any private information, any confidential information, but it works really well. And it is, you can see it yourself at connect.simon.org. It's pretty cool. Now, along with that same need, at roughly the same time, we obviously needed to take down some kind of incentive prize if we only had one of them and it was taken. And we were doing that manually for a while, but we eventually added an inventory app so that we could do the logistics inside of Salesforce. So we have inventory items. Not everything we have is in an inventory item, but if we're going to purchase it ever, it's an inventory item. If we're ever going to sell it is the word we use. We're going to offer it as a prize in our learning laboratory incentive set, it's an inventory item for sure. So if we're going to purchase it, it must be an inventory item. And if we're going to offer it as a reward, it must be an inventory item. And we can have other things too, but those are our requirements. And so we have a known inventory level. We have a known need for each inventory item, so we can decide which items are urgently needed urgently needed because we're below some minimum threshold, and which items are just at stock up level because they're not full but we can project that they will be reaching urgent level in a few weeks. And then we have items where we're good on. And what we do with that is we display live on our web the urgent needs. This is a self-service answer to the question I get asked most often, which is, what do you need most of? I want to get you something. What do you need the most of? And the answer is, at this moment, as I was recording this, sandwich bologna, toilet paper in 4-packs so that we can give them to clients with housing to take home, trash bags in 7 to 10 packs so that we can give them to a client to take home, iPhone charger cables, and pop-up soup for our camping food bags. So, that's what we need the most of. And if you click into it, you find out exactly how many we need. You even find out if we have a preferred source for it and what we think we'd have to pay. And there's even a donation button if you want to sponsor how much we need exactly. It just opens up our webpage with that filled in and you give. So that's what we're doing with our inventory system. More than that, we eventually learned to automatically reduce our inventory when we deliver. So we have backpacks, and you can get one free backpack every 4 months. That way we always have them, and you can't come in and get a backpack every single day. It teaches people to take care of things and watch things, and and if something happens to yours, you can always get another one, but it costs you $20 in loyalty points to do that. So you've got to earn that with your learning. And so there's we're never saying no, but we're saying only a certain amount is in free, and you have to take care of the rest. We're teaching the value of things, teaching how to take care of things and hang on to things. The street is a hard place to do that, so we're very forgiving about all that, but it is nevertheless something we teach. So when we give those out, inventory goes down. Every award is tied to, optionally, an inventory item. And our in-kind donations are tied to one or more inventory items. We have to do that manually because all kinds of things are donated and not everything is tracked. But as we enter that in, the flow asks, is anything in inventory system that you need? And perhaps soon AI will know what our inventory items are and scan for the presence of inventory items and tell the user they should do that. But that's in progress. So that's what we're doing, and it's amazingly cool. It turns out inventory touches so many things. Your program delivery goes out the door. We're always running short of certain publications and certainly printed matter. So that's actually an inventory item. And in-kind donations increase inventory, and just serving 100 clients depletes certain kinds of inventory in certain predictable ways. So the fact that we served 100 people this week means we can just decrement the inventory of certain things a certain amount. And so turns out inventory is right in the middle, behind the scenes of like everything you do. And so this was a really solid addition that we did for ourselves. The next thing we did was activate teamwork. This has to do with us growing and me. And I'll give you 2 examples of how we activated teamwork inside of Salesforce. The first is the process of entering manual donations. And by this, I mean things that can't be integrated because they didn't come from an electronic donation or a portal somewhere. The problem is you receive checks, you've got to collect them together, open them, keep all the stuff, figure out who it's from, deposit, separate out what needs to go to the bank, and keep the stuff, keep the documentation. You probably need a copy of that for audit later. Somebody's got to enter it and enter it right, and they've got to figure out that James is Jim and Susie is Suzanne, and it's really hard work. And so what we did is break it into steps, much like a caging operation would. Someone who receives the envelope opens up our app and clicks receive and takes a picture of the envelope, and it does become an open opportunity record at that point, and the image is attached. And then somebody collects those periodically and sits down in a secure place where they can't lose anything and can keep everything organized. And they open each one on command by our flow, like, hey, find this. This is the outer envelope you're looking for. Find it. And now open it and show me the payment object or tell me there's nothing in there. And then show me any other inserts. And so pictures are attached, and it advances to the next stage. or you can skip it if you can't find it yet. And then that person separates all the things that need to go to the bank as a deposit from the things that are just records, and those are already all recorded. So, as horrible as it sounds, the records can now be destroyed because we have a digital copy of them all, and the payment can be bundled together for a bookkeeper. We can create a deposit slip and make that deposit. We actually do them. Truth is, we do it one by one online, but same process. Then finally, somebody sits down to figure out, at this point, they're donations, they have an amount, they're closed, but they don't belong to anybody. And the last stage is attributing them properly so everybody gets the credit that they deserve. And that is a process of reading the check, reading the enclosures, figuring out if this is a third-party donation or a private donation or a company donation or any other myriad possibilities. It takes some expertise and know-how. 80% of them are just private checks with the name right on there. And with a little luck, you can find the name in Salesforce on an account and match it up, no problem. And if you can't, you can make a tab, you can skip it and add an activity that says, help, I need help from somebody who knows more about this. I bet this person is in there. What should I do? Or they can create a brand new one. And the flow takes care of all that. So these 4 steps are done today by 4 different people with different expertise levels. Step 1 is done every time mail arrives. Doesn't matter whether there's a hand delivery or in the wrong mailbox and given to us or in our PO box that we pick up once a week, whatever it is, we receive every item. We open them all every week or every 2 weeks. We deposit them all pretty much the same day, but anyway, in a batch. And then we attribute them as soon as possible based on how easy it is and how complete the knowledge is. Process, and it works. And the visual record is right there when we need to do audit. And the interesting thing is that's what we do. And this is what it looks like so that it's really accessible to people who work every day and might answer the doorbell and be handed a donation. And, it works for cash, checks, gift cards, doesn't matter, bills. It's under our SIM Event Center app, which is just a collection of tabs that each open flows or list views. And they click receive, take a picture of it. It's uploaded. This is all inside the app using Share and Pix. And that's it. If there's only one item, they're done and close it and walk away. If there's 2 items, they just keep going. And then we open the same way, deposit the same way, and attribute the same way. And each item can be skipped so it stays in the stage it's in for another day. So that's what we do. There are obviously other tasks that you can do from the client center that have to do with client operations and the need to find a particular list view or run a particular flow. And we just make that easy by saying, hey, this is the task you're trying to do. Click it. What you need will be right there. Okay. That's the first example of activating teamwork. We took the work of one person, and namely me, and split it across 4 people. I'm only one of them. I do the opening. Okay, so the next thing we did is we use NPSP engagement plans to assign work related to constituent milestones, meaning we have a brand new client. They've been created using our Upsert flow, but just as a data quality check, we need to take a look, make sure it's not a duplicate, make sure we entered in the right information, assign any tasks as needed to get it right, and then we can mark that closed. But every time we have a new client, at night, it goes through and assigns that template to that contact, which assigns the check to various people. And we do the same thing for first-time donors and third-time donors. And if you've donated 3 times but don't donate within your normal time period, we call you a lapsed donor, and we assign a lapsed donor template to that. And it just creates a task or a series of tasks that can be assigned to 1 or more people. The best example might be we assign some manually. When we are creating an email newsletter, we have a series of tasks. It's pretty complicated, but fortunately the engagement plan template editor allows for dependent tasks and parallel tasks and sequential tasks. So we have those assigned. Someone creates the template, someone reviews our current micro stories and picks out what we're going to put in the newsletter. Somebody edits the template, somebody creates the segment, somebody schedules the email, somebody updates the web page. But those can all be different people for different kinds of newsletters. And we have all of them. Every month we just assign those manually to the campaign, and the tasks run to completion. So that there's transparency, we have a dashboard that we review once a week with the whole team. By name, we look at the new engagement plans that are assigned to people, because we want everybody to know who's the hot constituents right now that we need to be watching for. But this graph of how many engagement plans tells us, where we're doing. And we have 38 in-kind donors that gave at least one time in the last 30 days. And it is our goal to send them everyone a thank you note by email or post, depending on what we have. We have 7 lapsed clients. We served them regularly for a while. We haven't seen them in the last 30 days. So we review them by name when this lapsed client engagement plan is created, to see if anybody knows where they are, what the story might be, how to reach them. And this helps us stay tight with our community. We do the same thing for a lapsed donor or a lapsed volunteer. So this is how we're activating teamwork and creating transparency. The tasks are the workload, but the engagement template is kind of how often things are happening and calls to the whole team's attention. This is the purpose. This is the person of interest. What can we do? All right. Last thing we've been up to is integrating data streams. Now, this concept is a lot like Data Cloud maybe, or MuleSoft, but we started itemizing these. We're looking into the concepts, and on our first inventory, we found 68 separate data streams that were being created by third party that we engage with. They either are created by email notifications, or they're downloadable, or you have to go poll to get them. But they're out there. And we have nothing to do with it. They exist. We were, for the most part, ignoring them all. And what we decided was we should at least start trying to capture them. And so we've done our best to start capturing the prioritized ones. By no means are we done. And the inventory has grown to 104 now, actually, now that we've had more time to think about these and look for them and watch for them. But we're trying to capture as many as we can. And our capture system is just get them into a spreadsheet. They're structured data of some sort. Get them into a spreadsheet. Our first application for all of that was our helpline. We were answering emails we were answering the phone when it rang while we were there. We were taking messages and getting email notification and forwarding it to our team, answering them. Then we started forwarding it to email to case, and creating cases and following up that way. But we also have text messages, and we also have social media messages, and we also have Hangouts, and we also have voice call transcripts, all of which really feed one thing called a customer support case. And those might be clients, they might be volunteers, they might be donors, doesn't matter what they are, but they're customer support cases. And so what we decided to do was to start trying to unify those into a case in a sort of a useful way so that we could speed things up. And what we do is we throw each one of those streams into email first, and then into a spreadsheet that has every piece of information available along with a date and and then we extract that using AI. AI understands that some of them are voice messages, and some of them are text messages, and some of them are call transcripts, and some of, et cetera. And to try to find the relevant names and the relevant phone numbers and the relevant emails from the message itself, and put them in all the right fields, summarize the case, look at the intent level. Is it a high intent caller? Is it a sales call? What is it? And also look at the tone of voice by everybody. Was it congenial? Was it kind of confrontational? Did it end unsatisfied? Did we propose a solution, or are we working on it, or is it completely open? And so AI does all that work based on the message. and puts it in another spreadsheet, and then we put it in our CRM. And we started on this 18 months ago, so we are using Gemini. It's now 2.5 Flash, but it doesn't really matter. It's Gemini. And our prompts are contained in the spreadsheet on attached to each column of the spreadsheet fields. So we have a prompt for every input field and every output field, and we have an overall prompt that kind of defines the role and parameters. And the data shows up in the spreadsheet. Gemini finds it and runs on it, creates one output row. It's one-to-one correspondence, fully traceable, fully trackable. And then using an API, we push that to a new case record. So one of these notifications ends up in the spreadsheet, AI processes it, and it ends up in a case record. That's all that can happen. It's a pretty big volume task, and it adds a ton of value, and it's almost free. The cost, we are paying for Gemini, but like in months, we've paid a few dollars, and we've processed hundreds of cases. It's a very, very low rate charge, and it's very stable and very reliable, and it's been amazing. And so we're very happy with that. Might we have done it with Einstein if it had been available and stable 18 months ago? Maybe. Might we have done it using MCP if it were 18 months from now and MCP were stable and fully understood and all that stuff? Maybe. But for now, we've done it using spreadsheets, and we use Zapier as the glue in most cases. So we're using spreadsheets, Zapier, Gemini AI, and it's not really changing. And then it goes to the CRM. And the really cool thing is, team members or admin can make a small change to a prompt about an output field and reformat it. Or maybe we're not picking up on that all hangups should be closed cases, and so we can make that prompt stronger for the status field of a case that was a hangup and get that right. And that's easily edited without touching code, without touching Zapier, without any of it. It's truly amazing, actually. And what's more fascinating is the very same AI engine can accept images. And so we also have it looking at every image that we upload to a sim event that might be an event record for impact, and describing what's in the picture, making suggestions for editing the picture before we publish it, and suggesting a call to action that might go with it. So, in terms of whether it's donate or volunteer or give in kind or subscribe to our newsletter or join our prayer team, whatever might topically kind of go with that, what's in the picture. And it also reads the caption that the team member supplies and proofreads it. So the very same AI is suddenly doing that same deal. New share and picks image tagged with impact goes to a spreadsheet. AI processes all the input with its prompt per field and reads the picture and really looks at it and outputs the various fields that we asked for, including editing instructions, composition, quality, likelihood to convert. Is it a good picture? Is it kind of boring picture? It's just a number, but it's a guess. But AI is taking the guess for us. We don't have time to. And then it goes into the spreadsheet and it goes back onto the share and picks image as a note. And it's it took an hour to make that happen because it's just making a new spreadsheet, figuring out the columns, having Zapier throw the new records in there and update the record when it's done. It's pretty amazing. So this is our version of Headless AI, and we have a lot of plans for it. We have 104 data streams that we can work on, and that doesn't count the internal ones. Like every one of our prayer requests has to be proofread, and we're kind of like, gee, maybe AI should do the proofreading so that there's nothing to correct. We still approve them all, but there wouldn't be anything to correct. And there's several administrative changes that we're aware of. We always make, and we remove a child's name, for example. When our client is praying for my daughter Olivia, we'll always remove the Olivia name of the child, for example. So there's some administrative things that we always do, and AI could do that and lighten our workload. So that's what we're up to, and that's our journey so far. And I would love to hear what you think. But we believe, obviously the AI is the most speculative, but we've been doing it for 18 months now and settled in on our rhythm and our projects, and we're slowly adding them. I'm looking for an intern that wants to do the addition of different data streams. They wouldn't be coding, they would be creating spreadsheets and connecting with Zapier and formatting the prompts and then outputting, which is a lot like building a Einstein task or something like that. But this is the engine we have. What I take from this is there is a multitude of accelerations that can be done for our employees so they can do the more valuable work. I don't see eliminating anyone here, but I think that AI can do some of the heavy lifting. A surprising thing that we found out is I would never take the time to read all the cases, but we are going to start reading the cases and creating real life stories from them, anonymizing them and generalizing them and considering and making them candidates for publication so that we have real life stories flowing out of our cases. And we also are going to analyze the closed cases for the need to create frequently asked questions about real life answers that we're providing and propose those be part of our FAQs. We're also looking at specific cases that are closed that were high intent contacts and doing some follow up with them to prospect whether they might want to be involved some more now. We worked with you on that particular issue, but would you like a newsletter, or would you like to give, or whatever. So that's been very promising. Our response rate on that type of thing has been dismally low, but once we started using AI and contextualizing it and timing it so that it's right after a closed case, by a week or so, we're seeing a very high rate of success and engagement with those. And we're eliminating, that's a high rate as in eliminating all the low intent contacts from the first place. But anyway, that's what we're up to. Would love to know what you're going to do. I plan on doing what I call a screen side chat about our AI journey of the last 18 months soon with some interested parties where we can have a dialogue and they can ask questions and I can share whatever. But this is what we're doing. It's working. It's valuable. I think everything on our journey list is stable enough that we can say it's adding significant value within our ministry. And there's plenty of things that I tried and we dropped. There's plenty of things that I tried and we replaced. There's plenty of things that we tried and just didn't. And it works fine, but nobody uses it. It just doesn't have the value that we anticipated, or it was transitory value. But I think everything I've talked about has lasting value in an organization, however you solve it. And in these tumultuous times when everything's changing so fast, I think it's very important to look backwards and figure out where the value is so that you can look forward and focus on the things that are going to sustain value. I have a 3-year technology plan that simplifies our tech stack. I'm saying no to almost every addition to our tech stack other than what we've talked about here for 3 years while we stabilize what we have and realize the value and see what's next. Many things will stabilize in the next year or year and a half. I think Marcom may figure itself out, and AI agents may figure itself out, and MCP is likely to figure itself out. And I think there'll be a lot simpler ways to implement things moving forward, but we're right there on the leading edge, I think, with what we've done. It's the art of the possible. And I challenge every admin, particularly lone wolf admins, to make sure you're building on each step builds on the next and doesn't clash, doesn't create technical debt too bad, and doesn't distract you. It will keep you happier and saner and realize more value for your organization. So thanks very much. You can reach me at some of these contacts. Bye.